The State Department has released another batch of emails from Hillary Clinton when she was Secretary of State. More than 2,000 pages have now been revealed. Congressional correspondent Nancy Cordes and senior political editor Steve Shigaris are in Washington joining us now. Thank you both. Nancy, first to you, anything of interest right out the gate? I know they're just coming out.
Right out of the gate, we saw one email that was humorous, but probably not of international significance. She was writing to one of her top aides, Cheryl Mills, and asked her if she could borrow a book called Send by David Shipley. This is a book that talks about how you can learn how to send email better. And so, you know, of course, the whole reason that we have all of these emails now is because she didn't follow the letter of the law when it came to email. She did not use a State Department email system. She used her own private email account and a private server. So that's an email that she sent in December of 2009. Aside from that, so far, and we haven't made it through all of them, we've got about a staff of 20 reading through these emails. We've seen a lot of resumes, a lot of people sucking up to Secretary Clinton because they want a job at the State Department. This is in the early months right after she came to the State Department. People who have just been hired saying how glad they are to be there and how well they're already doing. And a lot of notes from her top aides talking about how they've interviewed various people and what they think of them. But beyond that, we haven't seen anything that raises any major red flags. A couple of emails that have been classified since they were sent. One email because it referenced an official in Haiti, things like that. But we haven't come across any evidence yet that there are emails that were classified at the time but sent to her anyway.
Nancy, a follow-up before we get to Steve. They released less than expected. What should we read into that?
Well, I think what we're seeing is that a lot of these emails are very heavily redacted. So you'll see this chain of emails between Clinton and her top staffers that don't appear to be highly sensitive, and yet almost everything is blanked out aside from, you know, the names of who sent the email. So it's almost impossible to tell what was discussed and whether it truly is information that's sensitive and shouldn't be read by the public, or whether they've gotten a little overzealous in blanking out certain details that they think might be embarrassing to the Secretary or others.
We've seen stories this week, too, about the State Department responding to requests to actually see these emails, and how the State Department is saying they're overwhelmed in how to deal with this. And so I think that it's going slower than I think people want it to go. And I think you know, if there are fewer emails out or pages out today, that might be part of it too. It's just a slow go. It's 30,000 pages they have to get through.
Right.
Steve, the Associated Press is reporting the government censored passages to protect national security secrets at least 64 times. Could that mean that in those 64 times Mrs. Clinton was dealing with classified material?
It could be, but what she's been saying is that she unknowingly was dealing with classified material. This is stuff that she's arguing was not classified at the time that she was dealing with it, and then later, as they go through them, years later in some cases, they go through them, they realize, oh shoot, this is actually classified. We need to make sure this is out of, or we redact her, this is out of commission. So she's arguing that at the time she was sending it, it was not considered classified, and they're going back later and marking it classified.
Nancy, Ron Fournier sent out a tweet earlier today saying, you know, if I was in charge of the staff of Mrs. Clinton, I'd fire them for the way they're handling this. How is the Clinton staff reacting? How are they dealing with it? Do they seem overwhelmed?
Are you talking about former staffers that are at the State Department, or her campaign staff?
Her campaign staff now.
Well, you know, they're trying to walk a fine line. They're trying to argue that they're being fully transparent, that they're trying to hand over various emails after the fact. The State Department, when it was blasted by a federal judge earlier this week for taking too much time, actually revealed that they're still waiting on some emails from top Clinton staffers like Jake Sullivan, like Cheryl Mills, and that those emails were requested back in the spring, but those requests are still outstanding. And so Clinton's aides say that, you know, it's very difficult to get these emails together, and in some cases it's, you know, hundreds and hundreds of pages. They're doing it on their own. But you know, you've got a federal judge and the State Department itself saying that it's just taking too long to get these documents.
Steve, I wonder, there's a full staff, I was just reading, that is handling these FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act, that for that matter, pretty much anyone can file. How are these documents released? Is it all digital?
It's all like they're PDF files that are put out on the State Department website, and they put them out all at once at a specific time. So today it was at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. They just put out 68 pages, which is, I think, I'm trying to do the math here, it was about 20 PDFs per page, so significant number of documents. They are now legally required to put these out every month, at the end of every month, and so we're going to be going through this practice every month. I always like to remind people, too, that these emails were turned over from Hillary Clinton's personal email account to the State Department, and now they're going through it and checking this stuff. And every month we're going to be getting this stuff, and every month we're going to be looking for the bombshell moment. But conspiracy theorists will always say, you know what, she's the one that sort of went through these emails, so maybe there won't be a bombshell after month after month after month of looking through these.
Nancy, what are the people who are filing the Freedom of Information Act request suspicious about? What do they think they're going to find in the emails?
Oh, it varies from, they think that perhaps they'll find something about Benghazi, that Clinton perhaps hasn't been completely forthcoming about what she did in the days after the Benghazi attacks, or perhaps that there was some kind of a stand-down order that meant that troops that could have helped in the Benghazi situation weren't sent. And there are FOIA requests for all kinds of documents from the State Department. I mean, the FOIA requests that the State Department says it's overloaded with don't just have to do with Benghazi and don't just have to do with Secretary Clinton. There are citizens and groups and media outlets that are requesting documents that have to do with all kinds of topics, dating back a year, dating back 10 years. And so the State Department says that those requests have increased by, I think it is 300%, but they still have the same level of staffing to try to go through all of those documents. And they say that those people who are reviewing all those documents and trying to get them out in a timely manner are also trying to review the Clinton documents. And they argue that that's why it's taking them so long. But this federal judge really went off earlier this week and said even the least ambitious bureaucrat could have made it through some of these Clinton emails by now that, are mostly routine schedules and calendars and things like that. And he essentially accused the State Department of slow walking this whole release. You mentioned Benghazi, and that seems to be the real driving force behind all of this. But they're releasing these in order chronologically. So we're starting with, the last batch she started as Secretary of State in January of 2009. So we're still in 2009. The emails that we're seeing today are far from the 9/11/12, which 2012 Benghazi attack. So we've got a long time to go if anybody's looking for that smoking gun on Benghazi. As they release these chronologically, we're months away from seeing anything even remotely close to Benghazi. Nancy, the Clinton campaign also released the health records for the former Secretary of State. That came out today, correct? They did. They just happened to release these health records about a half an hour after the State Department made this tranche of emails public. It's a two-page letter from Dr. Lisa Bardak. She's the chair of internal medicine at the American. She's a diplomat of the American Board of Internal Medicine. And she says that Hillary Clinton is essentially in great health and that she has seen her at the Mount Kisco Medical Group in Mount Kisco, New York. She says that she's been Mrs. Clinton's personal physician since 2001, that she is a healthy 67-year-old female whose medical conditions include hypothyroidism and seasonal pollen allergies. She does note that Clinton had a concussion in 2012. We obviously covered that extensively, and she says that Clinton experienced double vision for a time and benefited from wearing glasses after that concussion, but that the symptoms resolved within 2 months, and she appears to be in good health, although as a precaution, she is still on a daily anticoagulant. I think what's interesting here, though, is they're trying to counter this this narrative that Hillary Clinton is not trustworthy and honest, and so they're worried that the focus on the emails today is just going to continue that narrative of honesty and trustworthiness. And if you look at the polls, her numbers keep creeping up in that department in terms of the negative numbers. And so putting out this or being transparent with this medical stuff, and then talk about putting out information on her tax returns, they can try to counter that narrative by saying we're being transparent.
whatever everybody else is saying about the emails, we're actually trying to be transparent here.
Steve, do you also think, at least for this afternoon, I mean, the release of the medical records is an attempt to change the conversation because she cannot get away from these emails and the pursuit for them?
She's not going to get away from the emails. As I mentioned, we're going to be seeing these every month. She's testifying on Capitol Hill in October. That's getting close to voting time in Iowa and New Hampshire. So the email story is not going anywhere. So I think every time the email story bubbles up, and they know, they can predict when it's going to bubble up because you know that this release was scheduled for today, they can try to counter that with, again, specifically this transparency argument. The email situation is really, it goes right at the honesty and trustworthiness part of Hillary Clinton's persona. And if they can try to counter that in any way by showing that she's actually more honest than you think she is, then that's what they're going to do.
Nancy, you recently asked her why it's been so difficult for her inner circle to turn over emails in a timely fashion. And I noted in her response that essentially was, we've been proceeding in a timely fashion and doing everything we can. I noticed that she was very calm and collected, slightly different from what happened before she officially announced. And when she was asked questions like that, she would respond passionately and in some ways feisty. What do you make of as she gets barraged with these questions that in many ways are the same questions, her tone is very different?
Well, first of all, I think it's that she's gotten now dozens and dozens of questions about her emails on the campaign trail. She is used to it. She knows that those questions are coming. And I think she's also trying to, to portray an air of, oh, nothing to see here. Everything is completely fine. Everything is being done by the book. Everything was done by the book. I didn't do anything wrong. Let's move on. And so I think that that's the tone you hear in her answers, which often don't exactly answer the question that was asked. She kind of has a couple of pat statements at this point that she makes whenever she's asked anything about her email. For example, I asked her, as you mentioned, what about her top staffers? Why is that taking so long? And she said, oh, we're doing everything in a timely fashion. So, and that was it. So, she's been very reluctant to go into any great detail or to get very specific in answering the myriad of questions that have been asked of her about why she chose to use a personal email account in the first place and whether anyone told her that that might not be the best idea.
Nancy Cordes and Steve Shigaris in Washington, thank you both for taking the time.
Sure thing.